that at least I took. Senator Portman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank both of you for your service on behalf of the people I represent in Ohio, on behalf of our country. You know, most commission reports end up collecting dust on a shelf somewhere, and there's an opportunity here for this to be a seminal report to really change the direction of our country. It depends on what Congress does, and you've given us the opportunity to make these necessary changes. To Alan Simpson, he mentioned that I worked for him at one point. He inspired me to take a shot at elected office, which means you're going to be blamed for even something additional now, Senator. Yeah.
Me, both of you now. Well, great.
That witness protection program will have to be even better. And Erskine, thank you for your service. And when you were Chief of Staff at the White House, we worked closely together. Ben Cardin and I did some work on increasing savings and helping on retirement. And I don't think it ever would have been enacted into law without your intervention. And I recall that, and your willingness to step out of the partisanship into solutions. And that's what you've done in this report, so thank you. Because you all spent so much time on this, I've got 3 quick questions for you just to get your thinking on it. 2 we've already discussed briefly, tax reform and Social Security, but just on tax reform quickly, do you think from all the testimony you heard that the proposals that you have will not just have the impact that CBO and the Joint Committee on Taxation would indicate from the scoring, but also will make our economy more competitive?
Yes. Yeah, without question.
So that's an intangible that's really not represented in the numbers that you're providing, which can help to grow the economy and therefore to grow revenues. On Social Security, we will hear later today, I'm sure, and we've heard all along, that Social Security isn't adding a dime to the deficit and it's in good financial condition. Do you agree with that?
Well, it's $45 billion cash negative today, and it's expected to stay cash negative for the foreseeable future.
That's based on the Congressional Budget Office report recently?
Yes, sir. What people sometimes forget is that when somebody my age goes to collect on their Social Security, I want money, cash. And I go to present that obligation to the Social Security Trust Fund, and it doesn't have cash. What it has is the government IOUs there, which are as good as gold. But the government has to go out into the marketplace
and borrow the money.
Borrow the money. And so it increases the national debt. And so in essence, what we're doing, since half the money is borrowed from foreign countries, at least half of the money I'm getting is coming from some foreign country to pay my Social Security.
That's a very, very good way to put it, and I think that's the reality. I'm glad you addressed the issue in the report and also talked about it today because it is adding to our debt. The final one is the toughest one of all, which is what's the economic impact of all this. There are some folks out there, as you know, who study this, who have said recently that if we reduce discretionary spending, it will result in job loss. It's called a Keynesian model, where government spending being reduced equals a certain amount of less economic activity, therefore job losses. These are the same folks you recall who looked at the stimulus package and said that the roughly $800 billion, over $1 trillion when you add interest on the debt, that had to be paid for it because we had to borrow money for it. But those folks said that our unemployment would be 8% last year and would be 7% this year. That hasn't happened, but now they are saying that if we reduce spending by the 1.6% that you mentioned earlier, Erskine, that there'd be a great loss of jobs. You've looked at this carefully, and earlier you talked about the potential of a financial crisis. You talked about small businesses being starved for capital if we don't do something. What do you think the economic impact would be of reducing spending along the lines that you have recommended?
I'm not an economist, and I don't want to pretend that I am. What I am is a pretty decent business guy. And what I can tell you from my career as a business person and from heading the Small Business Administration, that small businesses can't grow and can't create jobs without money. And if we don't tackle this fiscal mess that we have today, then small businesses will be crowded out of a marketplace, and there will be fewer jobs, not more jobs. If you're really concerned about jobs, then we've got to tackle this fiscal problem head on.
And we did realize throughout the fragile nature of an emerging economy, which seems to be happening, except, of course, the jobs doesn't meet the expectations. But people, I don't think when you're all through with what we've done, will say that this was a failed commission like all commissions, because you, Senator Portman, were involved deeply with the Select Commission on Immigration and Refugee Policy, and we did two major pieces of legislation, legal immigration and illegal immigration, and with that bill brought 2.9 people out of the dark to obtain a legal status in America. I was on the Iraq study group. That was not a failure. This last administration didn't accept maybe 4 or 5, but 50-some of those 79 recommendations have been adopted. These are not feckless things. And this one ain't going away. This is a stink bomb in the garden party.